All right, welcome to the channel. Let's talk about the top 5 quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL Draft. At number 5, we have J.J. McCarthy out of the University of Michigan. What I like about him is his pocket presence and pocket mobility. He handles pressure pretty well and is able to slide and step up in the pocket while keeping his eyes downfield. He has the speed and quickness to roll out and make plays on the move too, flashing some ability to make throws on the run and off platform. I feel like even his speed gets a little understated when talking about him. I think he has some potential to be a solid dual threat guy. I'm not talking like Lamar Jackson or even someone like Jaden Daniels, who's in the same draft class as him, but I think his rushing ability could be used in a similar vein to someone like Russell Wilson back in his like prime days in Seattle, somewhere in the range of like 30 to 40 yards a game and maybe 5 to 10 carries. Just more of a change of pace and keeping the defense honest with his speed kind of way, if that makes sense. All right, enough about his legs. Let's talk a little more about his arm. There's really nothing to complain about in terms of arm strength with him. He can make all the throws you need him to. He even throws with anticipation at times, which is definitely something needed at the next level. And now, while he does have really strong arm strength, it's more the arm talent that I'm concerned with. He throws too many bullets when he needs to put more of an arc under it, and rarely throws with touch. If he can really learn how to put more air under the ball in those situations, like deep balls down the sideline or layering over defenders over the middle in kind of the intermediate areas, if he can get better at that stuff, he can take a really big step forward in his development. I mean, it helps your receivers too if you can give them some time to run underneath the ball and make a play. He could also use some improvement with decision making and reading the whole field. He has a bit of a tendency to force throws into coverage rather than letting the play develop a little more and letting someone get open, especially when there's still a clean pocket to work with. He'll kind of, seem to get a little bit impatient and just kind of force it in somewhere that he doesn't need to. Overall, though, I'm going to give McCarthy a 2nd round grade. It's honestly close to a 3rd, but I bumped him up to 2nd based on him being pretty young still and having pretty much all the physical tools needed to be a franchise guy. He just is very raw right now and needs a lot of work to still reach that level. With that said, though, I would not be surprised if there's a coach that falls in love with his arm and his mobility and says, fuck it, I can fix him. So, that probably is the case since we're seeing him go in the top half of the 1st round and a lot of mocks lately. Top 5 is a little crazy to me. I probably would not be comfortable taking him that high, but I could understand a team jumping into the end of the 1st round and grabbing him there just to get that 5th-year option. Moving on to number 4, we have Michael Penix Jr. out of the University of Washington. Biggest thing that jumped off the screen at me when watching his film is his accuracy and ball placement. My God, dude. This guy puts the ball exactly where it needs to be. He's accurate to all areas of the field, and he understands where to put it in the perfect spot for his receivers to catch it, or his receivers to avoid defenders and to pick up yards after the catch. I think he could really cook with a huge yak guy on his team. I know people are like, oh, he has Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan to throw to, which makes him look better than he is. No, I think Penix helps those guys about as much as they help him. His ball placement sets his receivers up for success, and I think he's a guy that could really elevate the pass catchers around him because of it. Look at what he was doing in Indiana. He had them, I want to say, this is like the 2020 year, I know it's a weird year, but Indiana, I think, was like top 10 at one point, at least top 15, I remember. And I remember Michael Penix Jr. being the quarterback of that team. And where has Indiana been before and since he left there? So I really think he's someone that could elevate the team around him. He doesn't necessarily need a ton of weapons. He can set his guys up for success and make them look even a little better than they might be. Penix is another guy that has all arm strength you need. He can make all the throws. There isn't too much to say. He can bomb it deep, and he can push it to the sideline with force and velocity. An aspect of his game that I think gets overlooked is honestly his pocket presence. Sure, he isn't super mobile, though I will say he can move a little bit when he needs to. He's not, I've seen people say he's like a complete statue back there. I don't quite buy that. I think he can move a little when he needs to. Anyway, his ability to make subtle movements and slide in the pocket while keeping his feet in line with his eyes and ready to throw is fantastic. He's able to buy just enough time back there to let a receiver come open and get a throw off accurately and on time. Moving to concerns with him, the big elephant in the room is his injury history. He tore and then re-tore his right ACL, and then had 2 different seasons ended due to shoulder injuries while he was at Indiana. That is rough, man. That is rough. So I think the injury concerns are justified. And I think you do have to wonder how durable he will be and whether or not he can stay on the field for full seasons at a time. Who knows? Maybe he'll be fine and injuries won't be a concern. Maybe they will. It's hard to say right now, but overall I think it's a valid concern to have. And I mean, hopefully it doesn't become a concern. Hopefully he stays healthy and gets to show what he can do. The only real big on the field concerns I have with him though are that he seems to have a tendency to throw with his arm too much, which could put added strain on his shoulder over time. And he'll sometimes throw off his back foot when pressured, which could lead to less velocity on the throws. And, you know, with guys being faster and windows being tighter in the NFL, there's potential that could lead to more turnovers. Overall, though, I think these are fixable, and I still am pretty damn high on him. I'm going to give him a 2nd round grade, but that's really only because of the injury history that dropped him around. Otherwise, he would have a 1st round grade from me and would possibly even be my QB3 and maybe even QB2. I don't know. But definitely he would probably be my QB3 if he didn't have the injury history that he does. Still though, I'm very high on him, and I think he's more polished than almost all of the quarterbacks in this class. At number 3, we have Jaden Daniels out of LSU. Obviously, his running ability is one of the main things that stands out with him, and rightfully so. He is electric in the open field, and he seems to never run out of gas, even on long touchdown runs where he's changing direction and weaving in and out of running lanes for like 60, 70 yards. He's someone that can make an immediate impact in the run game in the NFL. I think it's a good compliment to his throwing ability too. He has solid arm strength and is able to throw accurately downfield, especially to the sidelines. His release is quick and consistent, which helps his accuracy stay consistent as well. And he understands when to throw it away from defenders and give only his receivers a chance to make a play on the ball. Add in the fact that he flashes the ability to stand in the pocket and go through his progressions and read the whole field, and he really has all the upside needed to be elite at the next level. With that being said though, there are still some things I am concerned about with him. Number 1, slide. Please, slide. Protect your body. Avoid contact. Keep your body in one piece. I know he's taken a million of these crazy hits and he gets up every time, but I still think it's something to legitimately be concerned about. Taking hits like that can still put wear and tear on your body and eventually lead to injuries down the road. I also think he could get a little bit better at maneuvering in the pocket. When there's pressure, he often just straight up bolts out of the pocket instead of kind of sliding and like stepping up and keeping his eyes downfield ready to throw. I will say that I did see him do that a couple times, so it's not like he's absolutely incapable of doing those types of things, but I think it's something that he could be more consistent at doing. I also noticed he seems to always be looking for the big play and will pass up receivers that are open underneath in order to just run it himself or to try to throw a deep ball down the field and make a big play happen. I think he's a quarterback that still needs a little bit of development to really excel in the pros, but I think his physical tools and ability to read the field give him sky high potential and makes him a 1st round grade in my book. I think New England at number 3 might be a little high for my taste, but I would definitely pull the trigger on him in the mid to late first round. I think he'd be worth it there. At number 2, we have Drake May. I've kind of gone back and forth with May and Daniels at the number 2 spot, but ultimately May's size and arm strength just pushed him over the edge. I don't have the same durability concerns with May that I have with someone like Daniels, and Daniels' slimmer frame and more chaotic play style. May is bigger and has a better feel for when to protect himself when running. As for May's arm, the dude is a fucking cannon, and he can show it off in the pocket or even when he's on the run. The first game I turned on for him was the game against Clemson this year, and right off the bat he was throwing these like crazy deep balls on the run and hitting the receiver in stride, and I was like, okay, I'm fucking in. I get it. Now, he wouldn't be my number 2 quarterback just based off that alone, so let's kind of talk about what else he can do. He has some good pocket presence and can sense pressure while still keeping his eyes downfield. I will say there are a few times where he will sort of drift into pressure himself, which gets him in trouble, but overall I think this is a positive aspect of his game. His mobility is nothing to sleep on. He can break off some solid chunk plays when scrambling and can run a little read option here and there, but I wouldn't say the read option stuff is necessarily like a strength of his game, and it's probably not something he should be doing all the time, but he can do it here and there to kind of keep the defense on their toes. May's upside is through the roof, possibly the best in this class, based on his arm, his size, and his mobility. However, there is some real concern, in my opinion, that he will not reach that potential. I mean, you'll watch him and he'll make a wildly advanced play that makes you go, oh my god, this guy must be a 10-year veteran in the league already. And then right after that, he'll do something that makes you scratch your head and go, what the hell is this dude doing out there? So I think consistency is a big thing that I feel he needs to work on. Not just consistency in his decision making, but also with his accuracy too. I briefly mentioned his footwork a little bit and him drifting into pressure, but his footwork also can affect his accuracy. He doesn't always keep his feet in line with his eyes and keep a solid base, and it leads to some inaccurate throws down the field. I think he could stand to work on his touch a bit more as well, especially when layering the ball over defenders in the intermediate to deep areas of the field. There are times he throws too much of a line drive and his receiver just doesn't really have a chance at making a play on it with the defender draped right on him. I also feel like his arm strength bails him out sometimes because he does have kind of a slow release. I kind of mentioned it before, defenders are faster in the NFL and the windows are tighter. You can't always rely on your big arm to just fit it into those windows at will. So what might be, a 12-yard completion in college could be a pick six in the NFL if you give defenders enough time to react. I do think he is one of the more riskier kind of boomer bust guys in this class, but at the end of the day, his physical tools along with flashes of high-level traits make him too enticing to pass up, I think. And that makes him a first-round quarterback to me. And probably the second one off the board. Okay. My number 1 quarterback in this class. Can I get a drum roll, please? Spencer Rattler. Caleb Williams. Listen, Caleb is in a tier of his own in this class to me. I think May is even somewhat of a distant number 2. Caleb can make any throw you need him to. He can even make the throws you don't need him to. And his ability to move around the pocket and extend plays is insane. I think the stuff about him holding onto the ball too long is a bit overblown, and people also underestimate his ability to play from the pocket and within structure. Do you want to know why there are so many instances of him rolling out and extending plays all the time? Because his receivers weren't really getting open. Ironically, the top 2 quarterbacks in this class, to me, Caleb and Drake May, probably had the worst supporting casts around them. Jaden Daniels was throwing to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Michael Penix Jr. was throwing to Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan, and had the award-winning best offensive line in the country. JJ McCarthy maybe didn't have a great supporting cast in terms of receivers outside of Roman Wilson, but also had one of the best offensive lines in the country, and he wasn't really asked to do a whole lot in the passing game. Meanwhile, Drake May's top weapon this year was Tez Walker, who's good, a likely day 2 or 3 pick, and Caleb's best weapons were Taj Washington and Brendan Rice, who, again, are also pretty good, but are both expected to be day 3 picks, most likely. Not only that, but Alex Grinch was running his team's defense, so he constantly had to put up 40 points every game just to have a chance to win. Anyway, let's get back on track to the on-field stuff with Caleb and what he does and doesn't do well. I talked about his arm talent. His pocket presence is incredible too. He's able to manipulate defenders with just subtle movements in the pocket and has a great feel for pressure and can anticipate how the pocket will develop. His creativity when leaving the pocket is probably the biggest thing that jumps out for him. I honestly think the comparisons to Mahomes make sense when talking about this specific part of his game. I do want to clarify, I'm specifically talking about his ability to extend plays. I am not saying he's going to be Mahomes because he does not quite have the rocket launcher for an arm that Mahomes has. I'm not sure anybody will ever be Mahomes because I'm not even sure Patrick Mahomes is an actual human being. But anyway, I think someone like Kyler Murray is a great comparison for Caleb and probably a much more realistic one. I think their play styles are similar. Caleb's accuracy is consistent. He has a quick release. I don't really worry too much about his ability to make throws with good timing either. Another thing I noticed with him is his hustle. When he throws an interception, he's immediately chasing after the defender and trying to bring him down and, save a pick six or something like that. There was even a play where he was tasked with setting a block on a run play, and you can see him sprinting all the way across the field to put his body on the line to set a block. Now, obviously no prospect is perfect, and for as much as I've gushed over him the past couple minutes, he still has some things to improve on. The main things for me are that he does have a tendency to try to do too much and look for the big play rather than taking what the defense gives him. This is especially apparent when they are down by multiple scores in the game, and Caleb seems to want to get it all back in one play, and that leads to some mistakes. I'd like to see him be a bit more disciplined when that happens and continue to just chip away and take your chunk plays down the field rather than trying to score a touchdown every play. With all that being said, he's easily a first rounder to me, easily an early first rounder, like early as in number 1 pick. And I think he's the best quarterback in this class by a fairly significant margin. That's no disrespect to any of the other guys, though. I just think Caleb is maybe not quite generational. I know everyone's tired of that term being thrown around. I think he's close to that, though. I think he's the best quarterback prospect since Trevor Lawrence. I think he is at least a guy that only comes around every few years. Okay, honorable mention time. You may notice there's been one glaring omission from this list, as there are 6 top quarterbacks, but only 5 spots. Bo Nix, come on down. Nix could have been number 5 for me, but I think his upside is a little bit lower than McCarthy, which is why he was ultimately left off. So let's talk a little bit about Bo. He shows the ability to throw with anticipation and throw his guys open, especially on comebacks, curls, and out routes toward the sideline. This combined with his really quick release definitely gives him potential to be great in the short to intermediate levels of the field in the NFL. He's also very risk averse and knows when to just settle for something underneath and let his playmakers do what they do best. He's even a threat to make plays himself in the open field too, with good speed and mobility for his position. Now, let's get to my concerns. His arm strength is just not quite enough for me. Too many times I saw the ball just kind of floating up there when he was trying to push it to the sideline. He can throw a pretty nice deep ball with some touch, but I worry about his ability to throw it hard into tight windows beyond 10, 15 yards. He has a tendency to also leave a lot of plays on the field. And what I mean by that is there will be guys wide open that he just either doesn't see, or he sees them and just doesn't pull the trigger for whatever reason. The Texas Tech game this year might have been the biggest example of this. He will have plays where he only reads one side of the field and makes his decision from there. One more thing I noticed with Nix is that he doesn't seem super willing to just stand in the pocket and deliver throws knowing that he's going to take a hit. He often just wants to scramble out of the pocket when pressured instead of just stepping up and throwing. I don't get that sense of fearlessness from him that I would like to see in a quarterback. Overall, I give him a 3rd round grade. I think he can be a very good backup and possibly even a starter in a system that's more West Coast style with quick reads and rollouts where he only has to really read one side of the field. He shows flashes of some next level, advanced NFL traits, but just not consistent enough to go, yeah, this guy is a sure starter at the next level. And I think that lack of arm strength puts a cap on his upside as well. So there it is. My top 5 quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. Thanks for watching, if anybody even is watching. And I will catch you in the next one. See ya.